We're gonna, now, you're gonna take that point 3, 4 that was on the line right in the center, and you're gonna replace it with 8, 6. So we are only going to have 5 points at one time on this graph. So we're gonna go back to my list. I'm changing my X to 8 and my Y to 6. We want to know, how does this change the slope and the correlation? Because this point, let's look at it. It's not on there. This point is up here. It's in the center, but it's above the rest of the points.
Yes.
How? Oh no, sorry, it's over here. This is the new point. My bad. It's on the line, but it's farther away, right? The first one was on the line, but it was in the middle. Now we're on the line and further away. How did that change? So go stat calc 8. Let's see what the line's not going to change because it's on it, but we'll go vars, y vars, enter, enter. I'm going to replace y1. What changed? Did my slope change?
Correlation.
Correlation. Did it get stronger or weaker?
Stronger.
The correlation got stronger when I added points that were emphasizing and strengthening that relationship because it was on the line but farther away from the point. So it made my correlation stronger. So you can write the new. Now our residual was still 0. So now my correlation went up to 0.5. Okay, so you're going to do that for the rest of these points. Well, because when I looked at the graph, the point over here, 8, 6, is on the line.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on the line, so the residual is 0. Right?
If it's not on the line, then what?
Well, we'll say small or large. That's all you're going to say. A small residual or a large residual.
If it's closer to the line, is it small?
Close to the line will be a small residual. Away from the line is a large residual. So again, you are not adding another point. You are changing the last point now from 8, 6 to 10, 7.
It goes up again.
Okay, now look at your graph. Wait, is that 10, 7? Trace. Let's trace. Yep, that's 10, 7. We still have a really small residual, our residual, right?
Yeah.
How did it change the line? Go back into your lin reg. Stat calc 8. So what did it change? My correlation is stronger, 0.6 now, 0.615.
So are we not?
And my slope and y-intercept changed. My slope changed to 0.42. So my slope went up towards that point, and that was still small.
Okay, can I take one of these two?
Okay, as we looked at these points, we were looking at how adding a point to a set of data that's pretty equal distance around a line, how adding a point can influence the slope and the correlation. And with that, does an influential point always have a big residual? And what we should have seen is we had some points with small and large residuals here, but not all of them had a large residual that ended up being influential, right? The point 10, 7 changed my correlation and my slope, and it had a small residual. It was almost still on the line because it's pulling that regression line towards it. Where was the point that was farther away and not consistent? The negative one. 10, 0. 10, 0, once I made a new line with that point in it, it pulled the line negative, right? The original line was positive. It made the line negative. It made the correlation negative, but then it still had a really small residual. So the point is influential points don't always have large residuals. Okay, yes, some points that have large residuals will influence the R and the slope, but not always. Okay, so it's really how far away from the rest of the data there is. And then, is it consistent with the original pattern or is it inconsistent with the original pattern? That will influence, that's how it's going to influence the slope. Now, do you think this would be different, the influence, if instead of only having 4 points here, that's the last question, if we had 50 points centered here, 50 of them centered around that same area, do you think adding a point over here would have as much influence?
No.
No, right? 1 point isn't going to have as much of an influence on 50 values that are following the same pattern as 1 point on 4 values, right? And so the amount of data also affects how influential an outlier can be. Okay? So that was kind of to see visually how your slopes and y-intercepts, your slopes and your correlation can change with those influential points. And you don't always have to have high residuals. You really are looking for points that are far away from the majority of the data and inconsistent with the patterns.